Well, this has been a particularly difficult week for me, for all of us, with the remembrance of 9/11, I'm sure, the horrible stabbing death of the Ukrainian woman riding innocently on a bus in North Carolina at the end of August, and the assassination this week of Charlie Kirk that we all witnessed. And I don't like to get up here and offer words that aren't ultimately uplifting and motivating, but writing this talk demanded more of me than most others. When Valerie asked for my talk title last week or a couple of weeks ago, whatever it was, I really hadn't got anything planned, writer's block or whatever you want to call it, maybe divine order. But I thought for a minute, and the words, "Where do I go from here?" popped out of my mouth. And I said, okay, that's my talk title. Where do I go from here? Nothing had prepared me for hearing those words repeated so many times this week, all over television. And I usually skip around on channels to listen to the news so I can piece together what the prevailing opinions are saying, since there's no channel that really doesn't edit, clip, spin, and put out the news for their major audience or for their station owner, let's face it. So I skip around, and on every station, unilaterally, I kept hearing the question, where do we go from here? They may say, as a nation after that, or they may say, as a society in front of that. But where do we go from here? I have never so badly wanted a talk title back as I did this week. In our church, we are very focused on self-responsibility, and we believe the energy of our words is creative. We use affirmations and denials as a foundational part of our toolkit for creating the life, the world we want to see. Instead of saying, for instance, I have cancer, we might say, I affirm the wholeness of God's design in every cell of my body, and I deny the cancer the power to override God's creation as I deal with this. So there's an affirmation and a denial. We affirm the truth of God, and we deny the power that anything else pretends to be greater than God. When an occurrence like murder occurs, we have to dig down deep to remain focused on God's power over death. That's a tough one, especially senseless death. But we can think back to a time when that happened in biblical history, and we still have trouble understanding it. We may have anger. We want to assign blame. And we lose our sense of oneness with all of humanity because we would never include an evildoer such as that in our circle of oneness, right? This is where our spiritual work begins. I had a lot of disgust over the various reactions to the shooting of Charlie Kirk. I remember very clearly the moment that I heard JFK had been shot, when Martin Luther King had been shot, when Robert Kennedy was shot. And in every case, my stomach tightened to see some human beings celebrating while others were mourning. It made no sense to me. Of course, it wasn't so open to see back then because there wasn't the internet and the blogs and all that, but in every case, it was clear that some were in favor of all of those deaths. There were some, or it wouldn't have happened. Our world is once again at a turning point. Where do we indeed go from here? Frankly, I have never really listened to any of Charlie Kirk's Prove Me Wrong rallies, but I admired his commitment to speak his truth and take his discussions to college campuses. My grandkids loved him, and this hit them very hard. He was ultimately an evangelist, and his religious style is one that I'm very familiar with, having been raised in the Southern Baptist tradition. Obviously, my path diverged from the hellfire and brimstone to the positive Christianity of unity, which in many aspects, if you think about it, is much more difficult. We can't blame the devil for the evil we see around us, because what I see requires me to look within and purge all thoughts of evil or negativity from myself before I project on others. Life is like a mirror that way. Much like the realization that had I never experienced the burn of a flame on my skin, I couldn't really know the pain of fire firsthand. My mind stored that memory for all time when I experienced it. We recognize evil because we have an inherited or experiential memory of it. Gerald M. Polsky, who was a popular writer way back in the day, used to tell of a time when he was required to minister to a man in prison who was brutally killed a child. He was overwrought with anger and confusion as to how he could even begin to counsel this monster when he could barely stomach looking at him. He suddenly remembered a time when his young daughter came into his office when he was working, and she interrupted him to show him a drawing or some such that she had made for him. And he said, "Not now, honey, I'm busy." And she left his office brokenhearted. He didn't think much of it at the time, but his heart broke when he recalled it, and he imagined how it had hurt her. He realized it wasn't nearly the same, but he had indeed broken her spirit in that moment. Maybe he didn't break any bones or take a life, but he found a point of understanding where he could soften his heart and his hatred enough to relate and counsel the prisoner. That's a tough one. We must ask ourselves, what energy am I contributing that created this world where murder is almost commonplace, where rage and violence have become the go-to reaction for disagreement with one another? How can we get to peace in our world if we can't get to peace in our own thoughts and our own words? Yesterday's daily word gave me a lot of help after this week of chaos. It said, "Looking back on my life, I see how every step, even the ones that felt uncertain, led me to where I am today. Moments of doubt, delay, or seeming detours were not missteps, but part of a greater unfolding. Trusting this, I move forward with faith, believing each choice and experience expands my good, deepens my understanding, and brings me to greater meaning and purpose. Though I sometimes feel weary or unsure, I remember my journey is about trust, not speed. I pause when needed, gather my strength, and I continue at a pace that feels right. As I listen within, I find reassurance that I am never without direction. I use my guidance to lead myself toward my highest expression of life and joy." In the scripture, Isaiah 30, verse 21, it says, "And when you turn to the right or when you turn to the left, your ears shall hear a word behind you saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" If we want to change our results, we must change our choices. How many times do I, when walking through the grocery store, see a carton of eggs left randomly on the bread shelf, say something like, "Well, you just can't fix stupid"? Is that a positive thought? Well, maybe not. Of course it's not, and maybe no one heard it, but there's no love in it. Maybe the person had to dash from the store for an emergency. How would I know? Or maybe they were being just stupid. I don't know, they might have been a rocket scientist. Down here, you can throw a rock and hit a rocket scientist anymore. How do I know? Did I feel any better after rolling my eyes and imagining the worst? Not really. I just felt superior. Think about that. I learned a very important lesson years ago from my dear friend Kirsty Beckwith, who many of you knew, who was the most peaceful, gentle soul I think I have ever known. She designed this right behind me. We used to display our art together at the Harlingen Art Forum on Jackson Street. And for using that cooperative, we had to volunteer to sit a day each month acting as the store manager at the gallery. One time I must have forgotten to put the date on my calendar, and Kirsty discovered I hadn't opened the gallery. Well, she opened it, and in my absence, she sat the entire day and never even mentioned it. I didn't even realize it until the end of the month, and I realized I hadn't done my volunteer day for the month. I said something to her, and she said she had covered it for me. I asked her why she hadn't called me to let me know. And she said, what positive purpose would that have served? It would have only made you feel bad. Think on that for a minute. What positive purpose would that have served? Myself, I'd have made an excuse to call her and see if she was okay or something, to help her with the backup call so she didn't do it again, but mostly to know I had magnanimously set her time for her. Superior? Do my words serve a positive purpose? Will the situation be improved by them? It's a hard test, and I fail it several times a day, I guarantee you. But it's a test we all need to begin taking before we speak. They'll know we are Christians by our love. We cannot allow the politics of our country to force our voice of reason into silence. Most people, I have found, are not really far right or far left. We're somewhere in the middle. We can hold several opinions simultaneously without imploding. It's pretty amazing. Maybe we are fiscally conservative and socially liberal, or maybe we're just the opposite. Maybe we hold a blend of opinions that don't fit perfectly into anyone's box. Most of us are somewhere in that center ground area, but the political climate wants to divide us because, frankly, they want our vote. It's a numbers game, that's all. Can we hold to our truth in the face of that? And what is our truth? A lot of reaction can be provoked by those who have fully defined their mission and speak to it without apology. Like most politicians, most pundits, other influencers, their job description depends on getting reactions and converts. And they provoke our thinking and often our ire because perhaps we disagree with them, or perhaps we secretly envy their level of self-assuredness, or both. So why is it a bad thing? I suppose it isn't if it promotes more introspection. Everything about our life, our individual life, is an inside job. On a personal level, nothing out there can define you. It can only push against you and generate a reaction, and then hopefully self-examination. Why does he irritate me so much? Look inside. Why does that make me sad? Look inside. Why do I always fall for that, and you can fill in the blank, sales pitch, that personality type, that get-rich-quick scheme, or that pop-up ad, or whatever? Look inside. side. What area of our life seems to need to be filled up? Where do we think we're empty? Why are we trying to fill it from the outside? As Christians, our truth is that the Father and I are one. We can agree on that? Eric Butterworth said, "There is nothing you can do that will make God love you any more or any less." Consider that. His love is absolute, and it is in you, and you are in it. The hard rest of that truth is, and so is everyone else. Oh! And why do we react like that? We're all in this. God loves us all, each and every one. The ones we label this way and the ones we label that way. And those who label us this way and those who label us that way. We're all in God's love. We live in a confusing time, but we are here for a reason. We are all evolving in this process, and some are just beginning to find their spiritual path. So they're at different levels. We're all at different levels in our evolution. And I believe we were chosen for a time like this because we are all equipped with everything we need to get us through to the other side. Where do we go from here? We go forward, armed with the most powerful knowledge that exists. The Father and I are one. Every gift we've been endowed with makes us perfect for what lies ahead if we stay in communion with our Creator and our source. God is our source. We say it often. Job is not our source. Husband is not our source. Relationship is not our source. And certainly government is not our source. God is our source. We don't need to speak loudly, and we don't need to carry a big stick. We just need to remember who we are. We are children of God, and right along with every other child of God, we will turn hatred into love, violence into peace, with the renewing of our minds. Sometimes we must be brave and call out injustice. Sometimes we must step aside and let God handle matters which are totally out of our control. But we must always act in love instead of anger or fear or revenge. We must drop the labels that separate us into groups and let go of identifying ourselves with acronyms and club names and party names and all of that, because that divides us. We are all in one huge circle of God's love. And if we keep drawing lines between ourselves with these labels, we'll never come together because it puts us on the other side of someone's love. It's up to us. And I'm really tired of saying that the water looks the dirtiest when the clothes are getting washed, but I'm still optimistic that this is the process we're going through. It looks dirty out there. It's nasty. But I think this process is a cleansing process. It's the longest wash cycle I've ever been through, and I'm tired of it, but it's going to be finished at some point. If we're still here, we must be an important part of the process. It just stands to reason. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here in this moment, in this time. It is divine appointment. As our statement of purpose reminds us, and I'm going to read it all, but you know it in your heart, we are committed to follow and further the teachings of Jesus Christ in his nature of unconditional love, service, and joy. We believe in the goodness and the pattern of perfection within every human being. And we're charged to assist our brothers and sisters in discovering and expressing their highest good. That's how we get there from here. Remember Isaiah, that when you turn to the left or you turn to the right, your ears shall hear a word behind you saying, "This is the way, walk in it, walk in it." I'm so grateful that we are sharing this road. And with the support and ongoing discussions that emerge in our church, we will grow in spirit and in love and respect for one another and all the uniqueness that makes our congregation so collectively magnificent. So I ask that God bless you on your journey through the week, as well as mine, and that I continue to test my words before I let them come out of my mouth, because I want to see a world of peace and a world of love, and we can do this. God bless you.